And what does experience look like? I've talked about this at length, so I'm just going to give a very short bit to make it all come together. Your traditional topic cluster is very templated, very cookie cutter, and very, I'm not going to say uninformative, but just very flat in terms of the, who, what, when, where, why, and we'll throw in the best because that's where we make money. So that's a traditional topic cluster, but the emerging experience viewpoints around things are more around like, are we sure this is good? Do we know this is good? I tried it and here's like what happened. I trust so-and-so and they say it's good. And these are actually more of the subtle nuances of what people are expecting from search today. Sure, 10 years ago, you probably wanted to know, how to do SEO or what is SEO. But now, you don't necessarily care as much about those. I mean, sure you do, but maybe you care more about, what somebody has to say about SEO who you trust and respect, and what's their perspective or experience on the subject. So as Google has increased its computing power, it's been able to rely more on user engagement signal, which is, again, when presented with a search engine results page, are users satisfied, right? And they're gauging that, I think, by saying, okay, how many subsequent actions or searches are performed when a legitimate user gets a search engine results page for the search on the topic that they're ranking for. So I present to you at least some ideas on how you can think about experience in a way that, well, manual search evaluators are likely looking for, but you can imagine, more importantly, what we as humans want to click on and engage with. So right here, right, if we Google like start a blog, there are like things that people wish they knew before starting a blog. And so if you're going to consider doing something like how to start a blog, how to train for a marathon, challenging things like adopting a keto diet or something like that. And then, right, what people want to know is, well, things to consider before training for a marathon, how to train for the marathon, common mistakes while training for a marathon, and perhaps reasons not to train for a marathon, right? These are all within the consideration points of what somebody would care about should they, want to do something. So, I kind of wrote it out here, but how to do X, right, is best for the consideration viewpoint. And you can create any variety of these different article types. And that will obviously be interesting and useful to the user at the different stage in their journey that they're thinking about. Also notice, right, I wish I knew common injury mistakes for your first triathlon, presumably based off of my own experience, right? So these things, right, they come out not reading as formulaic as the old SEO guard used to, right? Like, I don't even know, like how to even wrap my head around. It would just say like how to start a blog, bracket 2023 updated guide. That's like a very classical SEO thing. And then now we're seeing the emergence of these like more subjective, not SEO looking things. And I think that the reasoning behind that is, again, Google's insistence on experience, and then manual search evaluators training the algorithm to then look at things a little bit more qualitatively. And then you start to see this sort of thing happen. Just another idea or perspective would be experience, right? And that's essentially what Google is saying. I just pulled these from some of my older slides when I was actually saying how experience was going to be a very core perspective that people cared about. So, right, the topic, a review of the topic, and then, I actually tried it, and here's what happened. I think that, product review updates, review update, these are all trying to like focus in on the fact that, well, a lot of people in affiliate, for better or for worse, have not actually tried the product. And so, can you breed more trustworthiness on the different, consumer packaged goods or reviews or travel to actually show the user, hey, I tried it, I'm legit. And so you kind of see these types of content pieces working. So search perspective contrarian, right? It's just saying like running against the normal grain. And this is generally good for trendy new topics, questionable, bold claims. Like we have here, learn to code and please don't learn to code. So I think early on during the AI like hype train that I think is actually dying down a bit, we had this piece of content that Travis published called like, should you use AI? Like why you should and shouldn't. And it did spectacularly because, right, we were like saying, here are the pros and cons, here's the things to consider. And right, we weren't, I guess, at that point taking a completely contrarian stance, but arming people with things that they should know about in relation to this. So right now, I do feel like, a piece of content that's something along the lines of like, AI for SEO, like is dead or won't work, like is likely to do well if I'm able to go into it and back it up with just saying that, yeah, commodity data in like a prompt is going to generate commodity data out from the large language model. And in that very basic sense, yeah, there might be a short window where that type of content is likely to perform just because, right, it's just newer and there's a lot of gaps within queries where commodity data out, it actually is just better than what, the like Google's understanding of that topic looks like. But we're going to see that hole plugged, I would say, very quickly in the next like year to two. And then, the entity gain, information gain idea is going to really be the more important thing to consider. So just some frameworks for you to think through to add experience viewpoints into your pieces of content, right? You have stages of consideration, you have contrarian viewpoints, you have expert viewpoints, experience viewpoints, discussion viewpoints, current events, and predicting the future. And all of these all have to do with your own subject matter expertise and experience on the topic that you're writing about or getting content written for. So just to sum it all up, I've been saying this for a while, but the Brian Dean skyscraper approach where you cram as much stuff into one piece of content, call it the ultimate guide to X, and then have it, rank for everything is just not the model that I see working in a compelling way moving forward. And most of this has to do with the fact that you currently only get one title tag, one above the fold experience, and Google is very interested in user engagement signal. So when they send people to an article or piece of content, they want to know, did the user find what they needed? Now, you could say, well, Bernard, if they're going to my skyscraper piece of content, wouldn't they find what they needed? And the chances are, they probably could, but a lot of topic clusters in a skyscraper type model are really just too long and unscannable. And so a lot of people are going to look at that and be like, oh, all right, well, I'm not going to read that. Maybe they do like a Control or Command F to find what they're actually looking for and then leave. But you can imagine, right, that's going to look way different than if somebody's looking for the benefits and of like bone broth in this example. And we can say, well, does it have benefits? Have an article with a distinct above the fold experience that is just answering exactly that intent that the user cares about within the topic that you're trying to rank for. So all in all, ranch style SEO refers to the fact that people are going to want more experience viewpoints on shorter pieces of content that better matches their intent that they care about for the topic. And the reason why this matters is, again, twofold. Number one is that manual search evaluators are swiping right and saying, yeah, these pieces of content look good. And I don't know that this is actually happening, but you can imagine for certain like types of like these topic clusters or skyscraper type pages, maybe they're looking at those as swiping left and being like, well, sure, it like covers everything, but it like just doesn't like feel right or read right. And secondly, the reason why I think this is important is because Google has a lot more computing power than it has ever had. And so it's a lot easier for Google to actually rely on user engagement in a machine learning world. And the machine learning, you can imagine, if your title tag, your above the fold experience is just a better match for what the user is looking for, well, that Google's going to know that, and they're going to weight that, and that's just going to do better. I'm just going to add this one last note, which is around video. And I think that video is really an experience and legitimacy booster. So, Google owns YouTube. So, many searches start on YouTube, featured videos, video carousels appear, but really video content is A, a lot more expensive to produce, and B, therefore not as commoditized as written content is becoming with the advent of AI content. And so video content builds trust better. The consumption of it is more normalized in that, if you're watching an instructional YouTube video at work, you're not being ridiculed for watching YouTube at work anymore. I do think 5 years ago, if you were watching YouTube at work, then maybe you got reprimanded, maybe even YouTube was blocked by the company domain or firewall.
Now, if you liked this Clearscope webinar snippet, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more great tips and strategies from the industry's best SEOs and content marketers. Make sure to check out the Clearscope YouTube channel for more great content.